There was once a man named Teddy. He was a middle-aged, balding, overweight, lonely man. He'd never had any siblings, and both his parents had died, which consequently left him with an estate and lots of money, which meant he didn't need to work, and the big house with a huge backyard made him go crazy with solitude. His parents raised him well to be a mannered Catholic, something he wasn't very orthodox about until after they died. It gave him no comfort in thinking they were in heaven, or that God was looking after their souls. He had issues with religion, with God in particular. He was taught that God was all-powerful and loving, and that he watched over everyone. But Teddy, being stubborn, didn't buy into all the benevolence, omnipotence and omniscience of God. He found problems like, if God is so powerful, why doesn't he just fix all the evil in the world? If he's so loving, why do bad things happen? And if he knows what everyone's going to do, then what's the point in watching over them? His father had little chats with Teddy when he was a boy, telling him that his mother was one of the beautiful ones, and that she's lucky God made her that way. That always stuck with Teddy, the beautiful ones. Why didn't God make him into a beautiful one? This supposedly all-loving God didn't seem to love Teddy very much. When growing up, Teddy found people in school and college that he found beautiful, and wanted them to become friends with him, but they always found him weird and creepy for trying to talk to them and hang out all the time. So he eventually gave up on trying to be around them, and just watched them from a short distance away, eavesdropping on all their interesting conversations. He found every word they said to be striking, a kind of beauty that comes naturally to some. Being an older man now, Teddy goes to a cafe a few times a week, just for something to do. He's a big reader, and always takes a Stephen King novel with him to read whilst he drinks his coffee. Not that he did much reading. He would peer at people over the top of the book, only people he found beautiful. He'd pretend to be texting sometimes, and take snapshots of the people he adored from first sighting. He printed them out, and tacked them up to the walls in a spare room in his house, each with a number written underneath them. When he felt alone, which was most of the time, he would go and stare at the faces just to consume himself. When he felt alone, which was most of the time, he would go and stare at their faces just to consume himself in their array of beauty. Soon, though, this wasn't enough for Teddy. He craved to be near these people, to watch them intently, see how they lived, observe a way to become one of them. He started following a few of his favourites from the cafe. They were regulars, coming in on their lunch breaks to grab a coffee, chatting away on their phones or to other beautiful ones. He followed them to their offices, sometimes their homes, and he took notes for each that he followed, noting what cars they had, what job they did, their address, marital status, whether they had children, what bank they used, the social circles they were in, and just generally anything he could find out. He followed one of his targets one night. He'd had a plan. She was walking home in the dark, taking a shortcut down an alley. Now at first she didn't realise Teddy was behind her, but after she heard his footsteps, she became wary. He was smart though. He pulled out his phone and pretended to call his wife. "Hey honey." "Yeah, I'm just making my way home now. I won't be too long." "Okay, I love you too." She seemed to ease up at the knowledge of knowing he was a family man, as it made him less of a threat. He fastened his pace, coming up behind her in the darkness, grabbing her and wrapping a chloroform-soaked hanky around her lips and nostrils. She struggled for a while, but eventually drifted off into unconsciousness. He had parked his car at the end of the alley, and he carried her dead-weight body into the darkness and carefully placed her into his back seat. He stared at her face for a minute, absorbing her beauty, basking in his victory of catching her so easily. She is his now. They will live in his house together, and everything will be perfect. Or so he thought. When she came around, she struggled, trying to attack him and escape, but he eventually killed her in his attic where he kept her. She said she wouldn't do as he said. She said she wouldn't understand that he didn't want to rape her, and he got so angry and struck her over the head again and again and again. This happened several more times, men and women, kidnapped and killed because they struggled when he got close to them. He buried them in his backyard, each grave marked with the number that was marked on their photograph, which now had crosses through them, and each body, each mutilated body, was buried with the notes he took while stalking them. Now, I say each mutilated body because after he killed them, he cut them open to see what was inside, to see what made them beautiful. He had made incisions from the chest down to the abdomen, using the masses of tools from his father's shed. He cracked open the rib cages and skulls and pulled out most of the organs for a closer inspection, ripped out spinal cords and removed their eyes from their sockets, and left them mutilated in a shallow grave with only a stick and their individual number marking the graves. He never found any evidence of beauty inside them, even though he kept looking. After about the 6th corpse, he knew it was pointless. He then proceeded to stalk more people from the cafe, kidnapping the ones he liked the most. He extended his search area, driving out to other cafes or restaurants and waiting for his victims to go into a secluded dark place, where he could pounce on them. He didn't kill these ones, around 9 of them. He kept them in a basement. It was a huge basement, kitted out with cages that his predecessors used for hunting dogs, around 30 altogether. He chained the beautiful ones up inside the cages by their necks, so they had their hands free to eat. He tied some up more than others, and gagged all the loud ones. He would watch them, he kept cameras on them, and if one of them misbehaved, he would murder them right in front of the rest to strike fear into their hearts. He sat on a small wooden chair, rocking back and forth as he watched them. He gave them water to wash in and basic beauty necessities to keep them looking prime. He grew tired of just watching these people. They weren't in their social environment to interact properly, and after a while, they just lost their touch. He thought about killing all of them, but he was far too lazy to dig all the graves in one go. He came up with several ideas as to what to do with them next. There was one idea, one that made a huge, spine-chilling grin grow into his face. He was going to make a whole new wardrobe. But who would he wear first?